Right.
Hi, I'm Neil. The other half of the
No, there's two pictures of them. There's two pictures.
yeah.
So there's one with somebody together, and then one just here will be.
Rebecca, is there anybody else that we want to wait for before we begin?
I think. Oh, there's one. Oh, nice. Audrey. Maybe wait just a few more minutes for her friend.
If you want, we can do Kriya, the tearing ceremony first. And
Yeah,
then we'll wait
why don't we
for
do that?
let's
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. If everybody can come gather around, just right here in this area should be fine. Rebecca, you already have. Oh, you do.
Yeah, we almost did.
So you just basically put it inside of your shirt and just fold it back. Okay. And you can touch the shirt. Okay. I'll just start it for now, and then we'll tear it after we do the book. All right. I think do I need? I just put it in. You got an extra then? I had a whole handful in the pocket. Okay. Rebecca. So before we actually begin the funeral ceremony, it's customary to perform the ritual known as Kriya. Kriya means tearing, tear a garment, or in this case, sometimes ceremonial ribbon. Symbolizes the tear in the fabric of our family, a tear that can never be repaired, and a tear that will always be there during this time. We're going to begin the tear, and then I'm going to recite the blessing. Everybody who is the direct mourners, Rebecca, Andrew, Michael, and Miriam, and Jeff will repeat after me. Let's begin first by start it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan ha'emet, which means praised are you, Lord our God, sovereign of the universe, who is the judge of truth. Go ahead and tear a little bit further. Recite words from the book of Job. Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem, Adonai Mivarach, which means that God has given us precious life in the life of Jan Lobatz. God has taken that life away. Nevertheless, we praise God's name. So in a moment, we're going to just step right over. I want to make sure that everybody is here. Is Audrey here yet or not yet?
Audrey is right here.
Oh, okay. So
Getting out of the
let's
car.
wait for her to come. As you probably all know, traditionally at a Jewish funeral, we would accompany the casket from the hearse to the grave. Not only do we not have terribly far to go, but because of the current restrictions, we're not actually permitted to do that. The casket has already been set, and so we'll just step forward once we're all here. Yipoho mitzitcha elef urava miminecha elef elo yugash. Rach ve'enecha tabihid v'shulamad v'shayim tirek yetad and I maksihi el yon samtameonecha lo tunelecha raha v'nega lo yikrab bo alecha ki malacha v'yetzavelach lishmorcha b'chol derachecha ahal kapayim yisurincha pentigo v'evan raglecha al shecha v'feten tigro Sunohos kafir v'fetanin ki v'chashaka al tehu Asag vehu ki yadash mi yikrayat v'nenehu imo anasi b'tzara Achal tzehu v'yakav dehu orech yemimas v'yehu v'yarehu v'shuati orech yemimas v'yehu v'yarehu v'shuati. May all be seated. If you'd like, those who are in the back there can gather around to the side here is okay. In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time, filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. And so we begin our service with the recitation of Psalms, linking the life of Janet Lobatz, the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel, and the eternity of our God. Shir lema'alot, asa einai el harim, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai, osei shamayim va'aretz. Al yitain lamot raglecha, al yanum shomerecha. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomcherecha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka ve'yareach b'layla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzedcha v'olecha, me'ata v'yad olam. Song of ascent, I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. Adonai will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm, will guard your life. Adonai guards your going and your coming, now and forever. In the Bible, Hannah, the mother of Samuel, is undoubtedly one of the most audacious female characters of our Hebrew Bible. Faced with a series of seemingly insurmountable challenges, Hannah takes matters into her own hands. She takes control of her destiny rather than allowing others to chart that course for her. She appears before God at Shiloh to offer her most humble prayers. In response to her exemplary behavior, the Talmud asks this question: how many significant halachot, how many matters of Jewish law can we derive from the example of Hannah? We learn that prayer must be made with intent, that it should be audible yet soft, and that we should be humble and focused. How fitting it is then that this selection, the Haftarah for the first day of Rosh Hashanah, has been read for so many years by our Janet Ori Lobatz. Like Hannah, Jan charted her own course in life. She was both audacious and humble, bold and intentional. She stepped forward and brought into reach, and into the reach of others, what was otherwise seemingly unreachable. Embodying the example that Jan set in her life, today we too reach for the unreachable. We reach for the proper words to honor the life and legacy of this incredible woman. So it is in this spirit that we will hear first from Jan's beloved family members. I want to first call upon Rebecca, her daughter, along with husband Jimmy and sons Asher and Alec. Just be careful.
I'm hearing a lot of those. You may find this very hard to believe, but today I feel very blessed. I do. I feel blessed that I had an exceptional mom. Anyone that knows me or knows my mom knows that I am right. I am relieved that there are more stories to be shared today because there is no way I can capture them all myself. But the stories I want to share with you today, which is what I cherish the most about my mom, are the close relationships she had not only with me, but the most important people in my life. If you were my friend, you were Jan's friend. No matter what walk of life of mine, in my childhood, even in my more recent adult years, if you were in with me, you were in with my mom. I loved that so many of my closest friends and their families have been guests in my mom's home, shared dinners, seders, Jewish holidays, special occasions, and even happy hours with Jan. During her illness, my mom's impact on my friends became even more clear to me. I could write the most beautiful eulogy using only the words from my friends about what she meant to them. As my relationships grew with my father's family, they naturally became my mom's family too. Just to be clear, this is her ex-husband's new family. She and Jeff were always happy to share family celebrations with my father and Andy. And because my own family here has a deep and close connection with Alan, Kara, Barry, and Braden, so did my mom. She was so honored to attend their mitzvahs in the last few years, and even wholeheartedly celebrated Braden's bar mitzvah only days after she found out she had cancer. If you ask my mom to list her best friends, near the top would be Jimmy Rubin. She told me this many times and bragged about it. She would share with me many details of their conversations and time spent together with such pride and joy. Likewise, Jimmy would express how he won the prize for the best love. Their mutual love and admiration for each other brought significant peace to my life, which I know truly was my mom's ultimate goal. My own relationship with my mom will stay alive in me forever. She and I flowed together effortlessly my entire life, and I know people noticed. She respected every decision I ever made. Some took a few attempts for me. But when it was time to move on, she moved on with me, by my side, every step. As I took on a new role in her cancer journey, it was my turn to support her decisions. There were plenty of times I would have done things differently. Many here know what that was about. But in the end, I was constantly reminded of what she taught me, that there's no greater gift you can give a loved one but to support them and their decisions and do it with pride. This was her story to tell, and with that comes honor for both of us. The special relationship my mom had with my sons, Asher and Alec, began at their births, at the birth center that she and Barbara built together, with my mom by my side, both times. Since Asher was an infant, she would pick up both boys from daycare or school or wherever they were, bring them back to her house, play with them, make dinner, then bring the boys and the dinner back to my house for Shabbat dinner. She hardly ever missed a Friday, and we looked forward to it. My mom knew this was a gift to Jimmy and me because after a long week of work, but she would say the real gift was the time she got to spend with her grandsons. Even when the boys were older, the Friday homemade dinners continued. My mom and my boys spent many day-long adventures on Jeff's boat, traveling together to see their Iowa cousins too. She regularly attended Asher and Alec's baseball and basketball games where the shriek, "That's my boy!" became a thing every time they made a good play. She would take them to theater as little boys and even managed to cultivate a little interest in Alec, who accompanied her on several shows, even more recently. Another special connection my mom had with my whole family recently happened during her first round of chemo, which coincided with the Nats World Series championship season. Stay in the fight. It took on a dual meaning. While recovering on the couch from tough chemo days, she watched every Nats game and suddenly was able to carry on an informed conversation about everything baseball and everything Nationals, which most people know means a lot to this foursome right here. Between chemo treatments, she and Asher attended the Nats wildcard game, which ended in possibly the most exciting win in Nats history. And then, of course, she watched the Nats win the World Series. The Nats won the fight, and so did my mom. Cancer did not win. My mom lived her life forcefully and fearlessly. She fought on through every twist and turn and changed and charged on with love and with dignity. And this is how you beat cancer. I want to close with an experience last year when Alec and I were invited by my mom to see Cats at the Kennedy Center, back when that still happened. If you've ever been to a musical theater with my mom, you know that she unapologetically sings out loud during performances, no matter how many glares or how many shushes she gets. Now imagine her with her bad hearing and at a play where her all-time favorite song is sung. Memory. I think I actually broke out into a little sweat as I knew the song was approaching. The song Memory is sung by Grisabella the Glamour Cat. Her character had become weak, and she was reflecting on her glamorous years. Grisabella's ultimate wish was to be accepted to the Heaviside Layer, which was like heaven, where the Jellicle cats were reborn. I'm sure Alec remembers that when the song started, the three of us started holding hands. It was in that moment my mom became the song, and the song became my mom. Daylight, I must wait for the sunrise. I must think of a new life, and I mustn't give in. When the dawn comes, tonight will be a memory too, and a new day will begin. Touch me, it's so easy to leave me all alone with the memory of my days in the sun. If you touch me, you'll understand what happiness is. Look, a new day has begun.
Yeah. Can be some repeat we didn't consult. We're gonna miss Jan's quirks. She had many. If you ever ate a meal with Jan, you know she liked her food rare. She would tell a restaurant server about her steak, make sure it's still moving. At family barbecues, one of us would deliver the plate of raw meat to whoever was cooking. And just as the meat touched the grill, someone would say, "That's how Jan likes it." If you ever ate a salad at Jan's, you learned to be skeptical about the expiration date on the salad dressings. That's because she loved to hold on to food, believed it lasted well beyond the recommended date. Her freezers were stocked with kugels, pies, and stuffing. Occasionally, you'd pull out an aluminum foil wrapped tray, and it would be difficult to read the writing. You weren't sure if it was 2019 or 2009, but it was always yummy. But Jan was way more than her quirks. I often thought that I should write down somewhere what she did, so when I was older I could remember some of Jan's best practices. Here's a couple. First, lead your family on adventures. Locally, she'd take the boys to see plays, to see fireworks on the mall, to baseball games, or to speed or tube around the bay with Jeff. Internationally, we went on so many trips of a lifetime, to Israel, Jamaica, and Tanzania, to name a couple. Another Jan best practice: pick up your grandkids from school on daycare on Fridays and return them in the meetings in the evenings with pre-made Shabbat dinners. It's a brilliant idea. When Asher and Alec were young, Rebecca and I loved the breaks from the kids and the weekly opportunity to eat Jan's cookings. And the kids seemed to like it too, even when they got older. we didn't really compare notes, but finally, Jan's last best practice, and it's so simple. Love who your kids love. So Jan loved who Rebecca and I loved. Jan hung out with our neighbors and invited our nearest and dearest to her parties. She made our friends her friends. There's no more powerful grandma hack than that one. Jan's quirks, lessons, and love will live on. Her spirits live in you all here, friends, our friends, and our family. I see it in Jeff and his kids and his grandkids. I see it in Miriam and all of the Israeli cousins. I see it in Michael and all the California cousins. And I see it in Andrew and all of our Iowa family. Thankfully, it's reflected in Rebecca and Asher and Alex, so we can see it for many years to come.
I just had a quick thing to say. Just the traditions that Grandma was able to pass on to me.
Two memories that I always will remember for the rest of my life is one of the block party that we went to that she was happy to take me no matter what the price was or how hard it was to get the tickets, and just being able to spend that time with her and watching my favorite team with her. It's just something I'll never forget, especially because the game was so awesome. And I don't know, I'll just never forget it. And the other one is just all the days that I got to spend with her and JJ on the boat. And I always remember the same routine we had. Get picked up by grandma, get sandwiches at Subway, go to the boat, eat the sandwiches, we go tubing for hours, go back to JJ's place and shower, and we go out to dinner at Lito's because that's where grandma loved to go. And then we finally go back home exhausted after a great day. That's what I always remember about Grandma Jan.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, Grandma gave me a shofar for, I think it was Monica one time, and I would always blow it at her Roche badges, and I just wanted to, that was just a big thing for me and her, and it was a tradition that I'd like to keep going, as well as at her dinners, she sometimes make me sing the motzi, which is, something small, but it's something that is going to remind me of her.
I'm really grateful for all of you who are here in person and here virtually. I'm also really grateful for our masks because I am making all sorts of crazy faces under here. And I know all of you are too. It's really nice to be together. I've missed that a lot. I love all of you. I'm just gonna read all the stuff that I wrote down on, it's not in any order or anything like that. I'm just gonna kind of go jazz on you. like my sister's family just said, my mother, of course, loved music. And I love music too. It's really a big part of me. Many of you know that I write music as well. And I don't have it finished yet, but I'm writing a song for my mom. It's called Christmas Got Run Over by a Janet. I'm also thinking of kind of writing a song to Michael Jackson's song Thriller, but it's called Kosher. Kosher! See my mom dancing around in there in her kitchen. When I was little, she used to play classical music on her 8-track tape recorder and make me guess first, like what instrument was playing. Oh, that's a French horn, or that's a piccolo. And then soon she was asking me which composer it was, because she loved Mozart and hated Bach, and just make sure that I hated Bach too. I think because Rose hated Bach, her mom. She took me to the National Symphony Orchestra and to ballet. Her son, my wonderful girlfriend Erica, has been so supportive. She was shocked I'd been to a ballet. For my bar mitzvah money, I bought a stereo. Wish I still had that stereo, man. A nice Technics, turntable, everything. But he's gushing over those things now. I'd set it up, took me a few hours, and I had my Journey tape. And I was gonna put the Journey tape in it, and I was gonna blast my music in my room. And right as I was about to put it in there, a hand came over and yanked the tape away, pushed me aside, and put in a tape, closed it, and turned it on. It was my mother, of course, and the song was Rock Around the Clock, and she proceeded to teach me how to jitterbug. And that she would not let me listen to music until I knew how to dance properly. I'm gonna tell the story my mom loved to tell about me most often. And it's sort of re-traumatizing. But it characterized a lot about our relationship. And spent a lot of time in summer camp. And my first couple weeks at summer camp, she would send me with the required items: shorts, bathing suit, a shirt, a towel, and a lunch. That's it. Shoes. And over the course of about 2 or 3 weeks, I would lose one of those items. And my mother, wanting to make sure that I understood the implications of what was happening, the fact that I lost just about everything that I came in contact with at that time in my life, although apparently I still do that a little. Eventually, I got on the camp bus with nothing but a little Speedo, and that was it. No shoes, no pant, no lunch, no towel, nothing. And the mothers in the Potomac Preserve development and everyone thought that she was crazy. They also thought she was crazy that she raised my sister and me on skim milk, but that's another thing. I spent time with her in the place where she worked, which is not an office at first. I entered people's houses with my mom, and it was nothing like I ever experienced. I had medical, my dad was a doctor and she was a nurse, and I kind of knew what she did, but I had I had two jobs. I don't know, I must have been like 6 or 7 or 8 at that time, and I did them well. Barbara can attest to this. Usually around 7.5, 8 centimeters, somebody rang the doorbell or knocked on the door, selling something or wanting something. My job was to go to the door and say, "I'm sorry, she's busy right now. Could you come back later?" And I had that memorized. And I knew when somebody said she's around 7 or 8 centimeters, I went to the door. I was at a home birth with her once. At this kind of really kind of weird commune in Olney. Back in the 70s, those were the folks who the midwives were serving a lot of the time. And I remember going into this woman's little bedroom, and in the bedroom must have been like 50 people. And they were all there coming and going, and it didn't make any sense to me. This woman was having a baby. Like, doesn't anybody give her any respect here? Is immediately what I thought. And it took me a while to just sort of realize what was going on. As this woman had contractions, like everybody in the room had contractions together. Everybody moaned and screamed while she had contractions. And eventually the woman, while she was having contractions, was laughing out loud as everyone was moaning and screaming with her. It wasn't anything you'd ever see in a hospital. It wasn't anything you'd see what you'd expect. And spending that time with her in people's houses really get me to understand her passion and what it meant to her, the work that she did. There were a couple things I didn't inherit from her. I didn't inherit her prowess with money. I hope my kids, I think they got it, so good. My mother was never spent a night in jail. Most of you know that my mom was like masterful at getting money back. Not paying the fees, not paying the interest. She just was like this magic guru. But I tried. I always admired that about her. I did inherit her good hair. My mother was the one who gave me my first alcoholic drink, a rum and coke at Forum. I remember being excited, and sitting there and I could smell the alcohol, and it smelled wrong and awesome. And I remember tasting it and spitting it all over out of the place in the synagogue. And my mom looking at me and laughing, and then she told me to take another sip. My mom was really into CB radio. I mean, you remember that moment in time. Her handle was the Maryland midwife. And she would be driving about the Maryland interstate highways at 2 o'clock in the morning on her way to or from a birth, checking a 1-9, where's the fuzz, letting the other truckers know that she spotted a cop. She fought through crazy Midwestern snowstorms and thunderstorms to visit my children, who she loved so much. Her grandchildren were just her pride and joy. She talked about them constantly. She loved to talk to Toby about stocks. Interested in that. She just adored Bella. She thought she was the most beautiful girl she'd ever met. After I graduated, she was at my college graduation, Rose. Rose said, the key to living a happy life is having reasonable expectations. And I thought to myself, okay, you know, don't think life's going to deliver too much to you, but you know. And then my mother pulled me aside and she said, when in doubt, lower your expectations. Finally, she embodied her places, you know, her geographic places, almost entirely through food. And her last days just sort of told the story. You know, she's from Chicago. She's lived in DC for like 60 years. And she lived a Jewish life. And so, her last meal was a roast beef sandwich from Wagshall's here in DC. And anybody you know what those roast beef sandwiches are like. And she snarfed it. She just went. And then she had a Chicago hot dog. And her last words to me, were chicken soup. Chicken fucking soup. And I thought, that pretty much sums it all up. So, if any of you are wandering around today asking why, or why do we have to suffer, and why do we have to watch our loved ones die? Why is family so important? Why are there sometimes not great things in this world? And why is there also joy? The answer is chicken soup. May my mother rest in peace. Thank you all.
We'll hear from Jen's sister, Miriam.
We lived apart most of our life. When we grew up, she was the older sister, I was the younger sister. And we had separate lives. When we got married, we became closer. And even though I lived so far away, I most of my life in Mexico, we got closer and closer all the time. So I wanted to share with you a few of my thoughts about a sister. To feel a person's essence. I felt her, and she felt me. We felt each other's essence, no matter where we were. She gave to so many people. You're hearing stories, so many people. It was a privilege for me in the last 3 weeks to give to her. She was such a giving person. I knew her hurts. I knew her happiness. She was a sister. Some people are lucky to have a sister and really experience that connection. Not all people have it. Not all sisters have it. You have to let people inside of you, the way she was inside me, the way I was inside her. Not all people can do it, and not all the time. My sweet Jan, like you got me, I got you. We had such a special connection. You are inside of me, and I inside of you. You enrich me always, because it is not me. You are not me, but what you are is inside of me always, but different, always there. A privilege to love, a privilege to be loved, always.
Jan's brother, Michael.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you for everybody watching back in California, where I come from. Friends and family far in Israel. Janet was my big sister. You've heard, she's intelligent, dedicated, fiercely independent, determined, loyal, ambitious, steadying, fun-loving, compassionate, and strong. Just a few of the adjectives that could describe her. As a child, 8 years junior, I wanted to grow up and be just like her. I always looked up to her. I can still do, even now. She inspired me through her education and career, and most importantly, her work, to go into medicine. She and Steve, at medical school folks, that stethoscope cheered me on to become a physician and care for others like she superbly did. You know, she took up the violin as a kid. We were all required to have a musical instrument. We referred, by the way, to our mother as the Hungarian government. And I took it up too, although she then changed to piano, to my chagrin. But that and our father, plus our mother, was the basis of the three of us having a lifelong love of classical music. We would race to name that tune when a piece would come on. Was that Beethoven or Mozart? Was that the third or the fourth symphony? I didn't know that Janet didn't like Bach. Neither did my mom. I wanted to talk about her as a nurse a little bit, just to know as a physician, I love and absolutely depend on my nurse colleagues. I've always told my students, residents, partners, to listen carefully to what a nurse is saying to you. The fool really doesn't. I had that indelibly etched into me, in part by my sister. Because Janet and nurses are always right. She was an extraordinary nurse, and I can say this as a physician talking to her over many years and watching what she did. A nurse practitioner, a nurse midwife, she knew more about medicine than many did. She was a pioneer advocating for women, nobly sacrificing for others throughout her medical career, working nights, weekends, holidays, putting her patients first. And as you've heard and as she had told me and as I saw, she would drag Rebecca and Andy to births. Rebecca told me the other day with a sort of a pirate smile that she credits watching those births as her first form of birth control. Janet loved to play, whether it was a trip to New York for a blood rare steak and a play on Broadway, a full corned beef sandwich at Carnegie Deli, trips to Israel to visit Miriam and family, taking that family in the midst of chemo to Africa, going to Jamaica. We once went scuba diving in BVI. She loved it all and was always able to give it a go. She had that adventure in spirit, and as we all know, she truly appreciated five-star hotels as well. She was planning Machu Picchu in the Galapagos next, in between chemo treatments. That was on the list. As a family, we cherish Thanksgiving holidays, alternate most years between Washington, Bethesda, and San Diego. Wonderful family memories planted, cultivated, and blossoming in successive generations. She was generous with her love to my wife, Debbie, and her daughters, Michelle and Tova. They cherished those silly times as kids with Janet, watching I Love Lucy and R-rated movies all day long in her waterbed while eating cookie dough. As many of you know, I love the outdoors. I particularly love to share that with Janet as well as Miriam. It was a treat watching her light up and be at ease, walking through the giant forest in Sequoia, or as recently as 10 weeks ago in the face of her battle with cancer, making it to our place in Montana with Rebecca for 5 days. "5 days together, 5 days fun and laughing, 5 days of classical music and some Coldplay, 5 days of Montana glaciers, snowy mountains, shimmering lakes, thick green forests, winding trails that she was able to walk just 10 weeks ago, rushing rivers and appreciating golden sunsets with a martini or a good glass of wine. 5 days of true appreciation and love." A wise woman once told me about the impermanence of life and of things. I lived then in the moment with her, now in the moment with her cherished memory. Of my beloved sister and hero, Janet Lobatz. Thank you.
Finally, we'll hear from Jeff Goodman.
For over 22 years, everything that you've heard has been part of our life. How do you sum it up? I was the benefactor of being pulled along by her and her aura in everything that we did together. Our support for each other. Our 22 years, a little different than most people's, was built on friendship. That was the key word. We were friends first. We became friends early on. Our relationship developed. We were able to manage a two-home lifestyle. Sometimes she complained, sometimes I complained. The fact was, until this last few years, it was constant between the two. So all of those things are important. All of those things everyone has said. There are many more stories. There are tons of stories, but the happiness of her family and her friends is what drove her. And I just want to end this right now by saying exactly what I said to her every night. What I said to her last night as I got into bed. I gave her a kiss, and I did this on the phone if I was at home. I gave her a kiss. I said, "I love you, Honey Bunny," which was the name that I used to call her names, whatever came to the top of my head. And then the last 6 or so months, it's been Honey Bunny. I love you, Honey Bunny. Good night. Rest well. I can't say anymore.
Thank you to all of Janet's family members who spoke from the heart and spoke so beautifully. Times like these that it's so difficult to find the proper words, all of you did a beautiful job paying tribute to her and to her life. Thank you for sharing with all of us. Janet's story begins well before all of us were here. Otto and Rose Lobatz emigrated from Europe hoping to find refuge here in America. Otto from Germany and Rose from Hungary. They lived in the same building in Chicago, and their landlord introduced these two lonely souls to one another. And it must have been love at first sight, because they were married just 6 weeks later. And their family grew from just 2 to 3 with the birth of our dear Janet on November 20th, 1941. The world was a very different place in 41. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was serving his third term as President of the United States. World War II raged in Europe. But in Chicago, Otto and Rose were starting a family of their own. And after Janet came Sister Miriam, and then Brother Michael. Janet and Miriam, as you heard, were so close, very close, with only 21 months between them. They shared stories with each other that only sisters share with each other. Miriam remembers Janet was always strong-willed, and this attribute certainly served her well in life. Michael, being 8 years older, did not really grow up in the house with Jan, but she was Michael's role model. She was committed to academic excellence and hard work. She was ambitious and dedicated to her studies. And as we heard, it was Jan who inspired Michael to pursue his career as a medical doctor. And that is what she should have done, is what Michael told me. Had Jan been born at a different time, under different circumstances, that may indeed have been her path. Alas, Jan chose a slightly different, but no less noble career. Michael and Jan enjoyed close bonds later on in life, sharing hikes, as we heard, and camping out west. And although she would never admit it, Michael knew that Jan was a closeted backpacker, marveling at the beauty of the natural world during all of their trips together. She was more than just a sibling to Michael and Miriam. She was their ally. She fought for them. She spoke up for them. She was unafraid to confront someone if they dared step out of line. Even when Miriam moved to Israel, the sisters remained close for these 50 years, and Jan was able to visit with her children to celebrate smachot and spend time together. After Jan graduated from Senn High School on North Glenwood Avenue in Chicago, she received her Bachelor of Science in Nursing from the University of Illinois, where she met her future husband, Steve Epstein, a medical student at the time. And together they relocated here to Washington, where Steve completed his residency at the Washington Hospital Center and where Jan worked as a nurse instructor. Like the biblical Hannah, Jan was determined for more, to advance her career. And so she earned her master's degree from Catholic University and a second master's degree in nurse midwifery at Georgetown University. Jan's career as a midwife and founder of what became the birth center was truly groundbreaking. The model that she developed at the birth center became an example for others across the country. She, along with dear friend and colleague Barbara, were pioneers, empowering women to elect for this option for childbirth instead of going straight to the hospital. Jan empowered other midwives, working with the legislature of the state of Maryland and with medical associations to ensure that millions of nurse midwives and their patients have access to the rights and resources due to them. Jan was a lifelong advocate for women's rights, emboldened by her strong will, motivated by a deep sense of empathy and kindness. Jan always fought for what she believed in. In her extensive and accomplished 35-year career, she was involved in countless deliveries and supported multi-generational families. When Jan's marriage ended, she did not allow the challenges of single parenting to compromise her commitments to her patients or to her children. Neighbors and friends helped out when they could, and at other times, as we heard, Andrew and Rebecca joined Jan at the birth center. Her passionate care for her patients, her dedication to them, inspired her children to likewise take up career paths in which they too always tried to help others. Jan eventually found love again with Jeff Goodman, her beloved partner in life. Jan and Jeff found each other when they were attending the daily minyan at B'nai Israel, saying Kaddish for their parents. And true to form, Jan pursued that which interested her. She approached Jeff, invited him out for coffee. The rest is history. For years, they attended the Monday and Thursday daily morning minyan together, supporting each other, as well as so many others who came to recite their daily prayers and affirm their faith during times of loss. Theirs is a 22-year story of friendship and love. They spent winters in Bethesda, summers in Annapolis. Neither saw the need for a formal marriage. They built a beautiful companionship with each other. And in the years before that, Jan's family grew. Andrew's children, Toby and Bella, Rebecca's husband, Jimmy, and their children, Asher and Alec, and Jeff's twin sons, Andrew and Keith. Jan was a devoted grandmother, supporting her grandchildren in all of their passions. She was a devoted aunt to her nieces and nephews. She was an attentive listener. She never shied away from speaking up when it was necessary. She was dedicated to a wide circle of friends, and they were dedicated to her, especially her dear friend Audrey, who's been at her side every day during these final months. Jan had a keen sense of right and wrong. She was committed to both justice and empathy, sometimes due to a degree that others could not comprehend. She sat next to people who nobody else dared sit by, literally and figuratively. She gave of herself to her patients, to her colleagues, to her family, and to her friends. She gave of herself to B'nai Israel, our community, and to the Jewish community at large. She was a regular at our daily minyan, and that's where I had the opportunity to meet Jan when I first arrived at B'nai Israel. She touched the lives of so many people. Upon hearing of Jan's passing, one member reached out and told me that Jan was responsible for convincing her to start wearing a talit. Wrap yourself in God's loving arms, is what Jan said to her. She had a bat mitzvah as an adult. Unsurprisingly, she was a staunch supporter of including the Imahot, our matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, in the recitation of the Amidah. She was proud of her lineage as a Bat Kohen, daughter of one who can trace their lineage to Aaron, the high priest of Israel. Jan became particularly committed to reading the Haftarah, inspired by Chazan Deborah Togut of blessed memory. She proudly and passionately recited that Haftarah on the first day of Rosh Hashanah for many years, including this past year. Just over 2 years ago, Thanksgiving 2018, Jan received her diagnosis. Characteristically, she was determined to fight. She was intentional in developing her healthcare plan. Through it all, even until her final weeks of life, she was determined to fight. As she was in her career, in her family life, so too was Jan in her fight against cancer. Unstoppable. During these precious final years, she committed herself to traveling to spend time with family and friends. She traveled to Montana, and even as we heard, to Tanzania in the middle of chemotherapy treatments. She spent her life doing the things she loved, with the people she loved, and neither cancer nor a pandemic would stop her. When Jewish people take leave of this world, we pray that their soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. When we say this, we mean different things. For Jan, we pray that her unstoppable dedication to justice, her profound sense of empathy, and her willingness to fight for herself and on behalf of others be the foundations of a legacy that will be lived out in the lives of those she now leaves behind. We pray that Jan's siblings, her beloved partner, her children, and her grandchildren are imbued with her spirit, such that they bring honor to her memory in their own lives, touched and inspired by this incredible woman. We pray that her soul find comfort in God's eternal embrace. We pray that the soul of Janet Ori Lobatz, Yafa, Bat David HaKohen Barachel, rest in peace. Yehi Zichra Baruch. We pray that her memory always be for a blessing. Al Nikoma, Tavo V'Shalom. Pray that the soul of Janet Lobatz go unto God in peace. I would like to now invite those who are here to step forward to participate in the burial. Burial of a loved one in Jewish tradition is considered a chesed shel emet, the truest kind of kindness that we can do for somebody, because it's something that they could never repay back to us. And so I'll ask those, especially first, we'll begin with Jan's siblings, her children, her grandchildren, and with her beloved partner, Jeff, to have the first opportunity to do so. And afterwards, I'll invite all others. When we participate in the burial, we use the back of the shovel first, signifying that this is not a typical use of the implement and nothing that we do enthusiastically, but rather something we do out of a deep obligation. After that, you can turn the shovel back over, and instead of passing it one from the other, we stick it back into the earth when we've completed our time.
Anybody?
Yes, if it would be more comfortable for anybody to use gloves or hand sanitizer, you may do so right before you begin. Hatzor tamim po'alo ki kol derachav mishpat el emuna ve'enav el tzadik ve'yasharu. Hatzor tamim b'chol po'al miyamar lo timati pahal. Hashalihi v'mata v'ma'al menitu mechaye morit she'ol v'ya'al. Hatzor tamim b'chol ma'aseh miyamar lo mataseh ha'omer v'oseh chesed chinam lanu taseh. U'bizkut haneh kad kaseh ha'kshiva v'aseh. Tzadik b'chol derachav hatzor tamim erech apayim u'malei rachamim. Hamalna v'chusna avot uvanim, ki l'cha Adonai shirkot v'rachamim. Tzadik ata Adonai v'amit u'l'hachayot asher b'yadcha v'chol ruchot. Kalila l'cha zichronu l'imchot, v'yivuna einecha b'rachamim aleinu v'chot, ki l'cha Adonai rachamim v'ashruchot. Adam ben shana yifye o elot shanim yifye, ma yitron lo k'lo haya yifye, baruch dayan hemer v'yifye. ידענו אדוני כצדק משפטיך, תצדק בדוברך ותזכה בשופטיך, והרע ניגש בחופתך, שתיקתך, נביאת משפטיך, דיין האמת שופט צדק באמת, הרוח דיין האמת שכל משפטיו צדק באמת. נפש חד ידך, צדק מעלה ימינך, ונפש חד ידך, ותאמר למלאך ארץ ידך, גדול היית ורבה, עלי ויה, אשר עיניך תזמוד על כל דרכי בני אדם, לתת איש כדרך ותפריד מעליו, עדי ישע אדוני שפוי ולא עבלת אדוני אדוני לך שם, אדוני מברך, והוא רחום לקבל עוון ולא ישחית, והרבה להשיב אותו. V'lo yair kol hamato. Whatever you want. This time I'd like to recite the Amalei Rachamim, the memorial prayer on Janet's behalf. El Malei Rachamim, Shofen Bamaromim, Ametzei Menucha Nachona Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah, B'ma'alohot Kedoshim Utohorihim, Kezohar Harakia Mazahirihim, Et Nishmahat Yafa Bat David HaKohen V'Rachel, Shalchaha Le'olamaha, Began Eden Tehei Menuchata, Anabal Harachamim, Asireya Beseter Kanafecha Le'olamim, Utzrohor Bitzrachagim Et Nishmataha, Adonai Hu Nachlata, V'tanuach V'shalom Amishkavaha, V'nomahar, Amen. El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, the soul of Janet Ori Lobatz, Yafa Bat David HaKohen V'Rachel, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. This time, Fred's going to distribute to the mourner on page 2. You can recite the mourner's Kaddish together. Thank you. You do the regular mourner's Kaddish on page 2. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shmei Rabbah, Yalma, Tivra, Kuse, Yamli, Malkuse, Chayekal, Yomekal, Chayekal, Yisrael, Ba'agala, Bisman Karib, Imru, Amen, Yehi, Shmei Ram, Barak, Elam, Leomaya, Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitparar, Yitromam, Yitaseh, Yitadar, Yisalel, Yisalal, Shmei, Rusha, Berichu, Leila, Mikol, Birchata, B'shirata, Tushbechata, V'nechamata, Yamiram, Yoma, Vimru, Amen. Yehi, Shlama, Rabba, Min Shemaya, Chaim Aleinu, Yal Kol Yisrael, Vimru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, Vimrama, Uyaseh Shalom, Aleinu, Yal Kol Yisrael, Vimru, Amen. This time we turn our attention to our mourners. We give comfort to them during this time. I'm going to ask everybody, normally we would make 2 lines facing each other going away from the grave. Since we're right here on the walkway, I'm going to ask those who are not immediate family and friends to form again 2 lines facing one another from here. Everybody. As our family passes through, we offer them traditional words of comfort on a poem, Yenechem Etchem, Tov Shema, Adonai Zion Yerushalayim. May God comfort you together with all the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Thank you all for being here to give comfort to the family during this difficult time. I'm going to check with Rebecca about the one detail for the Shiva Minyanim, which will take place virtually. So check with me 1 second, as well as the
Hopefully everybody got the email with the Shiva link, Zoom link. Some people, if whoever's shaking their head no, just come see me and I'll pass it on.
And that'll be tonight, tomorrow night, and Wednesday night at 7 o'clock p.m. You can log on. There'll be a brief Mariv service and then opportunities to offer condolences and share memories of Janet with the family. Thank you all so much for being here.
I knew something.